All right, so I'm here today to talk with a guest who was contacted by an associate of the actress Evan Rachel Wood, Ilma Gore, Evan Rachel Wood's girlfriend, appearing with her alongside her in a documentary that Evan Rachel Wood did, accusing Marilyn Manson, the rock star Marilyn Manson, of sexual assault and abuse and all kinds of things. So anyway, I'm here with somebody who was contacted by Ilma Gore, by this associate of Evan Rachel Wood's. He was contacted, I guess, over a year ago. We'll talk about that, and was basically encouraged to join a kind of conspiracy against Marilyn Manson. Let's get into it. Let's talk about it. This is my guest today. This is Greta Aurora. Greta, hello. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I just want to launch into this because I think it's a pretty shocking story in some ways. And since Evan Rachel Wood and her accusations against Manson have been in the news, I want to talk about this. So when were you contacted by Ilma Gore, approximately?
I received 2 emails from Ilma Gore. The first one at the end of 2020, in October 2020. And the second one just a few weeks before the allegations were made public on Instagram at the end of January 2021.
And what did she say in those emails?
So in the first email, she was inviting me to join some Skype or Zoom meetings to listen in to meetings they were having in person in Los Angeles. And she was basically saying that she was inviting me because my experiences might be similar to the women who are attending those meetings. So it was very obscure language. She wasn't saying exactly what the purpose of her email was, but she did mention Evan Rachel Wood. She mentioned the Phoenix Act. She sent the email from the official Phoenix Act email address. And she started by saying that she's working with Evan Rachel Wood on this project. And then in the second email, she was inviting me to basically talk to her on the phone. She was just saying that she'd like to talk to me on the phone and share some important information. And that was less than 2 weeks before Evan Rachel Wood named Manson, and then the other women also came out accusing him.
So did she name in these emails, did she name Marilyn Manson specifically?
No. So that's the main reason I didn't respond, because she mentioned Evan Rachel Wood, so that should have been enough, I guess, to trigger the association, but I didn't really know who she was. I mean, her name sounded familiar, but it didn't say much to me, so I completely ignored the emails. I did save them because I had a funny feeling about them, but I never responded to her. I did respond after I published my original video, but then by the time she'd probably seen my video, she didn't get back to me.
Yeah. In hindsight, maybe you should have waited on that video and just gone undercover. I won't put that in the video, but okay. So it's interesting that she didn't mention Marilyn Manson, but we know now since then a lot has come to light, and we know that basically what was going on is Evan Rachel Wood and Ilma Gore were contacting women that they believed that Marilyn Manson had a sexual relationship with, and were basically we're basically encouraging them, or trying to get them to join in these allegations against Manson, to accuse him of, assaults, abuse, and that sort of thing. And so since then, there were a number of women that ended up joining them, ended up coming forward. And so I wonder if we talk for a little bit about why do you think they contacted you? So have you had a relationship with Marilyn Manson in the past?
Yes, I did, just over 10 years ago. So I met him in Vienna, Austria, while I was still living in Hungary. But I thought he would be a very interesting person to meet. I wasn't an enormous fan at that time, but a few years prior to that, in my early teens, I was actually a huge fan. And I had a lot of respect for his art and his persona, the exact same things that these women are now using against him, portraying him as this monster, because his art is so dark and it focuses on exploring the dark side of the human psyche. So that was something that was really meaningful to me. I thought he would be a fascinating person to meet. And I guess I was really craving an adventure. I was still a virgin. And yes, I was actually thinking that this could be a very interesting person to lose my virginity to if the opportunity presented itself.
So you don't feel it doesn't sound like you feel like you were manipulated in this situation. It sounds like you were actually like you were really wanting to meet him, or even like romantically or sexually interested in him. Did he ever behave in any way that you would describe as being like sleazy or manipulative or anything?
So a lot of people have pointed out that I must have been manipulated. And when I actually ended up meeting him, I could see how awkward and shy he was. He's not someone, I mean, he's obviously very introverted. He probably doesn't find it easy to talk to complete strangers. Yes, and I was very innocent and naive at the time, but I wasn't innocent and naive enough to
Well, that's what it sounds like.
I mean, I was, I guess, streetwise enough to kind of have a good idea of the dynamics between people and just how these things work. You know, manipulation is such a vague and abstract term. I guess that's why these women are resorting to claims about gaslighting and grooming and manipulation, because they don't mention many specifics when they talk about their accusations, because they don't have any evidence to back up any claims about physical assault. So all they can do is claim that it was all psychological. And well, I can only speak for myself. It definitely wasn't grooming. I mean, grooming is such a ridiculous term for an adult woman to use anyway. I don't think it's possible really to groom anyone who's beyond the age of majority, anyone who's legally an adult, because you're either a child or an adult. You know, there's no gray area in the law.
How long when you were after you were hanging out, I guess, so you ended up meeting up with him and you hung out some. Was he like sexual with you like from the beginning, or so you ended up having sex with him? How did that, you don't have to get into too specific, but if you don't want to, but how did that evolve, I guess? Was that a matter of him like being creepy or coming on to you really strong or whatever?
No, he really wasn't assertive at all. And I keep saying how innocent I was, but despite all of that, I was the one initiating it. So his PA, Ashley Waters, was there for the first couple of hours. It was just three of us talking and
his personal assistant, you said? His personal assistant, Ashley Walters? Okay.
Ashley Waters, who's one of the accusers. Yeah, she was there. And I could see they were very close friends. You know, they were very close to each other. And we had a conversation together. Then Ashley left to her room and it was just the two of us. And he was quite passive, and even at that point he was still quite shy and awkward. So I was the one initiating it. I, not aggressively, obviously. It wasn't harassment or anything like that, but I knew what I wanted, and it was kind of obvious that he wanted it too, but he just didn't. It's like he really wanted me to be safe and to be okay. That was the vibe I was getting from him, that he was even worried about trying something that might upset me. And yes, I mean, he was extremely nice and attentive. And obviously things then began to flow a bit better once I made it clear that that was what I wanted, but I never felt pressured into anything whatsoever.
And so you spent the weekend. I've heard you talk about this before. You spent the weekend with him. There was nothing. Was there anything abusive at any time? Did he behave in a way that was mean or controlling or belittling, or did he demand or ask you to do anything that you didn't want to do?
Well, nothing like that. I mean, he really wanted to make sure I was okay. He asked if I wanted to eat something regularly. And
he didn't starve you. I won't put that in there. No.
Yeah, and he didn't nail the curtains closed either, because one of the big allegations is that he likes to keep rooms very cold and very dark. The temperature was fine. You know,
you didn't feel like you were in a dungeon or prison.
Okay. He didn't say anything remotely nasty or belittling or anything like that. He was very complimentary and just genuinely nice in a natural way, very genuine person. I found it very easy to talk to him, to ask him questions.
And so after that weekend, you didn't see him again. It was basically kind of a fling. And I know you didn't live there. You didn't live around each other. And so how do you think then that Ilma Gore, Evan Rachel Wood's associate and friend or girlfriend, how do you think she got your number or your email, I should say?
So I'm pretty sure it was Ashley Waters who shared my details, because I gave her my number while I was there. She actually made a point of asking me for my number because they were going out the second morning. They were going out to do some stuff. And she said she would text me when they're coming back. So she had my phone number. She had my name, which, by the way, some people have attempted to dox me because I used the name Greta Aurora, which is obviously a stage name, an alter ego that I use. But basically, the name Ashley Waters had was, which is the name I still use. And if you Google that name, Greta Aurora comes up too, because I published some books that have both names on them. So it's very easy to make a connection between the two identities. It's not a secret. I have a website as Greta Aurora. So that's the website Ilma Gore found when she Googled my name. I mean, that's what I assume had happened.
So you never heard from them again. And we know now that this was a much wider plan between Evan Rachel Wood and also Ashley Walters, the former personal assistant, the one that you met that weekend, who's now suing Marilyn Manson, is one of the people suing him. So, this was kind of all part of the plan to try to recruit women to join their accusations against Marilyn Manson. I wonder, you've talked, I saw in a video of yours, you talked about how you had known abusive men in the past, or you'd even dated someone who was abusive, and how, the time that you were around Marilyn Manson, he didn't strike you as being an abusive type. Do you feel pretty confident about since, you were around him just for a weekend, although intimately, I know, you feel pretty confident about your assessment of him, that he's not this person that he's being portrayed as?
Obviously, I can only speak for myself, but it is definitely my experience of him that he's nice and genuine person. With me being there for a weekend in a country in Austria where I didn't speak the language, being so young and long time before the Me Too movement exploded. I mean, he would have been able to do to me whatever he wanted, honestly. And in that situation, it would have been difficult for me to report it. I wouldn't even known, where to go. Or, I mean, I was very vulnerable. I mean, he could have tied me up, left me there for a day. I mean, he could have literally done anything he wanted. And the vibe I got from him, the main vibe, was that he wanted to make sure I was okay. He was constantly asking if I was okay, if I wanted to eat something and things like that. So it definitely didn't strike me as an abuser. Again, this is just my experience, but this is my truth, as they say. Now, when I was interviewed by Rolling Stone magazine late last year, the journalist asked me what I thought was wrong with women coming together and coordinating their accusations. And what I said to him is that, you should ask them. They obviously think there's something wrong with it because they're lying about it. They're being disingenuous. They're misrepresenting the situation. They're basically saying that the way they all came together was very organic. It happened very naturally because they heard Evan Rachel Wood's testimony and all that. And we know that's a lie. We know many of them have been friends for a long time. And I have evidence that they reached out, I assume, to many other women apart from me. I have no idea why I'm the only one who has shown these emails, but I would also kind of like to make a plea that if there's any woman listening who received similar emails, please come forward.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. It's very interesting. Subscribe to my channel, subscribe to Greta's channel, and you can find part 2 of this video on her channel. Thank you.